When we think of entrepreneurs like Richard Branson, we kind of see them as these untouchable figures, right? Like they're playing on a totally different level. But what if I told you his entire empire, his whole philosophy, was almost completely wiped out in a single weekend? Today, we're going to dig into how that one moment of crisis didn't just threaten his company, it actually defined his entire strategy for life.
And look, this quote, for him, it's not just some catchy phrase he throws around. It is the absolute core of his philosophy. And it was born from a very real, very scary experience. That thin line, that's the space where fortunes are made or completely lost. And to really get how Branson navigates it, we have to start with what he believes a business even is at its most basic level.
So before we get to the high-stakes drama of that weekend on the brink, we need to understand the bedrock of his thinking. For Branson, the real difference between succeeding and failing, well, it doesn't start with a killer product or a fancy spreadsheet. No, it starts with a surprisingly simple definition. That's it. It really is that simple. For him, a company isn't some legal thing or logo. It's just a bunch of people. And that one idea, it changes everything about how you lead. Your focus shifts from managing things to actually empowering people. Suddenly, your main job is crystal clear. You have to be a great listener, a great motivator, and you have to get really good at finding the absolute best in your team. And this analogy is just so simple, but wow, is it powerful. It reframes leadership entirely. It's not about commanding people, it's about cultivating them. You create the right environment for growth, with praise, with positive reinforcement, and just like flowers, your team will flourish. Now keep that idea of flourishing in your head, because Branson was about to have it tested to its absolute limit.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Branson, who's already a huge success with Virgin Records, is just fed up. He's tired of the awful experience of flying on other airlines. So he does what Richard Branson does. He decides to start his own. Virgin Atlantic is born, and its very first flight from London to New York is a massive, massive success. But that celebration didn't last very long. Can you just imagine that? You're coming home from one of the biggest wins of your entire life, feeling like you're on top of the world, and the one guy who controls all of your money is literally waiting on your doorstep. See, the bank didn't see his bold move as a brilliant opportunity. They saw it as a reckless risk. They were having, in his words, a complete panic attack. The clock was officially ticking. And this wasn't just about the new airline. No, the bank was threatening to shut down the entire Virgin company. He had just a little over 48 hours to find the money to pay off the loans, or he would lose absolutely everything he had ever built. So here's the crucial part. When most people get backed into a corner like that, they try to negotiate, right? They'd plead. But Branson, well, he isn't most people. He didn't just see a problem that needed fixing. He saw a chance to completely change the game. And his response wasn't just defensive, it was an incredible counterattack. I mean, really, what would you do? The clock's ticking down, your entire life's work is on the line. What's the next logical step? Well, whatever you're thinking, Branson's plan was probably the opposite. It was anything but conventional. He literally pushed his bank manager out of his house and told him he wasn't welcome anymore. Just think about the audacity of that for a second. Then he spent the entire weekend on the phone calling in favors from his music distributors all over the world. He wasn't just trying to survive until Monday. He was already planning to fire his bank and find a better partner. He was going on offense. And this number, this just says it all. This is the result of that audacity. By the end of the very next week, not only had he found a new bank, but they offered him an overdraft facility 30 times larger than the one he had before. He didn't just survive the threat, he came out of it in a massively stronger position. That crazy weekend taught Branson a lesson he would never forget. Never, ever be beholden to anyone. But it also reinforced a much deeper philosophy he had about building a company that could survive any storm, even a storm that didn't involve him at all. See, he really understood the difference between being a founder and being a leader. As a founder, sure, he used his own huge, larger-than-life personality to put the Virgin brand on the map. But as a leader, he knew he had to master the art of delegation. He had to build a system that was bigger and way more resilient than just one person. And this right here is the core of his whole strategy today. He gives his teams an incredible amount of freedom to run their companies like they actually own them. And this is crucial. That includes the freedom to make mistakes.
Because if people are afraid to fail, they'll never take the big risks that are necessary for true innovation. It builds this culture of ownership and resilience across the entire Virgin Group.
And this quote just perfectly captures his ultimate goal. His entire leadership style is aimed at making himself unnecessary. He's built the brand and the culture to a point where, in his own words, it can live on healthfully without him. Now that is the true definition of a lasting legacy.
So, after hearing this incredible story about surviving the brink and building an empire, what can we take away from it? Well, the lessons are just as powerful for a tiny startup as they are for a global giant. First off, always remember, your company is your people. Water them, praise them, and watch them flourish. Second, never let one single partner hold your entire future hostage. Be ready to walk away. Third, when a crisis hits, don't just play defense, go on the attack. Look for that bold, audacious pivot that turns a threat into a huge advantage. And finally, the true measure of success isn't just what you build, it's whether it can thrive after you're gone.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. We all have a metaphorical bank manager in our lives, right? An obstacle, a partner, a circumstance that holds a little too much power over us. The real question is, who is yours, and are you prepared to push them out the door and make your own audacious pivot?